Okay, so you are welcome to class. So in this class we are going to look at how to make a 90-degree circle, also known as a quarter circle. Okay, and sometimes people call it a line, but it's not actually a line. You can just call it a flared skirt. But it's just that when you make a flared skirt, we can cut it on two folds. Either we can cut it in two ways. You can cut it on bias, or you can cut it on a straight grain. So that is one thing about flared. But for circles, you must always cut it on bias. Okay, I'm going to still explain the bias fold for you. So this class is going to the lessons will be in two segments. The first segment will be where we're going to talk about the calculation. Okay, then the next segment will be the cutting procedure. I'm going to show us how to cut on fabric. Okay, however, I am not going to use a full scale block. I'm going to use a quarter 1/3 scale block, and the reason is because the volume will not be too much and will not really see it. And I actually have a bodice for that. We have a miniature that we're going to put it on for the client. Okay, so that I'll show you our client. We take the measurements, then we'll proceed to the next stage. So let me get our clients ready. Okay, so this is our miniature. Okay, can you see? I call her Lara. Her name is Lara, and this is our model. She's going to model all our skirts. Okay, now the first thing you can come to your mind when you want to make a skirt or a garment or anything will be to take the person's measurement. Okay, so we are going to take her measurement, but because we are going to restrict the class for now into our skirts, so I'm going to take the measurement needed for the circle skirt. So the first measurement I'm going to take is the skirt, the waistline. I'm going to measure our waistline. Okay, so the waistline, when you want to take a client's measurement, to make sure you measure the curvier part here to get the waist measurement, or you ask them. It's even better you ask them, because we have different ways of putting on a skirt. We have some people that put it around here, we have some people that sag. Okay, so if you have a client that do sag and you measure here, this might be smaller compared to where she'll put it. And if you measure here for a client around this waist, maybe she's this kind of person that put it on her tummy to cover her tummy, especially people with tummy, they like to cover it up. So you need to ask them. So wherever they put their skirt, wherever they want their skirt to start from, it's where you are going to take their measurement. So now I'm going to take my tape around it. I'm going to measure. I'm going to take a measurement. I'm going to assume this is where the measurement will start from. Okay, so I'm going to just take the measurement from here like so. This is the measurement. And when you want to take a measurement, make sure your finger can go in for ease and one of the finger can hold the tape. Okay, so that it won't be too tight. You don't take measurement like this. Okay, you need to take a measurement in such a way that when you place your tape, it's because she's rather small, so that is why the measurements look funny. Okay, so this is our measurement here. Our waist is 9 inches. Okay, now the second measurement you might need is the hip measurement. This is if you want to attach, maybe you don't want to have a zipper skirt, you want to work with elastic. So if you are working with elastic, or we have elastic of different forms. So if you are working with elastic, that means you are likely to measure from this side. Okay, now you measure the hip measurement. You take the hip measurement, rather than you need to take the waist first. We've taken the waist, which is 9 inches. The second one is the hip measurement. Okay, so for a hip measurement, I'm going to just follow the procedure of putting my hand inside this. So this is 12 inches. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. This is 12 inches. Now the next one is now the skirt length. Okay, so I'm going to start measuring from where I took the measurement for my waist. I said it has to do with your client. It's your client that will actually give you what you want. Okay, now I'm going to measure from my waist measurements here, because this is where my own clients will put it on. and I'm going to measure up to here. She's using 10 inches, so that is 10 inches for our skirt. Okay, so we just measure the 10 inches here, and that is all about her measurement. So her waist measurement is 9, her hip measurement is 12, and the length, skirt length, is 10. So now that we are done with this, we can move back to the table to calculate the measurement, because the next thing she will ask you after taking a measurement is how much width we do, or how many yardage we do, or how many meters we do. However, we're not going to talk about meters, I'm going to talk about yardage. Okay, so you can convert it. If you are not in a country where they use yard, you can just convert it to a meter, and you get your accurate measurement. All right, so let's move back to the table and continue with our lesson. Okay, so we are welcome back to the table. We've taken the measurement, and I'm going to write them down so that we'll not forget. So I'm going to represent my W as, I'm going to label it as my waist as W, and it's 9. The hip is 12. I'm going to label it as 12 H, that's 12. Then we have the skirt length. Okay, the skirt length, let me just measure the SL, which is 10. Okay, and you know the first one we are going to look into is 90-degree circle skirt. That is what our clients want to make. So now if you get that, the next thing is to know your constants. And the constants for 90-degree is 1.57. I'm sure you just go back to your table. You know, we already assume that you have a table. Okay, so that is that. And now the next thing you're going to do is you need to know the kind of waist the kind of skirt you want. Is it the one with hip or the one with waist? So if it's the waist, you use it, and if it's the hip, you use it. So which one is the area of concentration? For this our particular class, we're going to work with skirt with zipper. Okay, so since it's with zipper, that means our waist is 9. Okay, and now I usually advise that when you are working with your waist measurement, please ensure that you had your waist plus your seam allowance, or zipper allowance rather, so that when you add your zipper allowance to it directly, you will use it as your measurement. Okay, what I mean is that if you have maybe a client of maybe waist 10, waist 32, okay, maybe the client's waist is waist 32, and now maybe I should be using I should use this pen. Okay, let me just bring this camera closer. So let's say our waist is 32 now, and you want to add a zipper to the measurement. Maybe probably you want to use 2 inches for your zipper intake for both sides, so that is 34. So this 34 will be what you are going to use instead of 32, because if you use 32, you may have to add seam allowance, and most of the time people usually make mistake with that. So in order to give you the seam allowance that you actually need, just add your seam allowance to your measurement. But if you are used to circles, you may not have to add your seam allowance for now, until probably when you are cutting on your fabric. So it's very, very important, and also very advisable that you follow the one that works for you. So now, if I'm going to assume we don't know anything about circles, so I will advise that you had your 2 inches for your zipper. If you use more than that, you can do that. You know, I usually advise my students for zipper to work at least with at most 4 inches for now. So with time, when they start sewing and they become better, maybe at an intermediate level, they can just change to like 2. Even some people use as small as half of an inch for zipper allowance. So it depends on you. So I think we've explained this. Now let's move back to the constant. So the constant, this is it, and I'm going to use the waist measurement as 9. I'm not going to add my seam allowance here, and the reason why is just because, you know, we are working with a body form, so we don't really need that. Okay, now we have this waist, which is 9 inches. Now the next thing is now to divide, because we need a procedure. So the first procedure is to list down the constant, write down what you are using, the waist or the hip. So the next value is now to do 9. You take your waist measurement, which is 9, you divide it by your constant, which is 1.57. so your answer will determine what next. So the answer 9 divided by 1.57 is 5.73. okay, that is 5 so you can use your calculator to check. Okay, so this is 5.73. so then you add it. The next stage now is you add it, you add it to your skirt length. Okay, this skirt length also you need to add your hem allowance. Okay, you add it. So now this is 5.73 plus 10, that is 15.73. okay, so in order not to confuse ourselves, you can just say 16. okay, this is an approximate 16. so what I need now is I need the 16-inch width of fabric. okay, it can be by the length, it can be by the height. okay, but I need 16 inches long. So that is it. So and also this 5.73 is the circumference, that is the width that I need for the waist, or the opening around it, you know, that is it. That is the waist circumference, or the hip circumference, or probably the sleeve circumference. okay, that this is what we need, and also this. okay, so that is that. Now you can now use this. This will give you the amount of fabric, and this is the weight. You can use this to tell your client how much weight. So let's assume I'm working for a client, maybe 32, waist 32, and when I did everything, I just have maybe more like maybe 57 or 54 inches. okay, so if I have something like 54 inches now, I'm just going to divide this by 36, which is 1 yard is 36. So at the end of the day, I'll end up having 1.5 yard. So I can just tell her that your 90-degree circle skirt, 1.5 yard will do. So that's how it works. So now we're going to move to the next class where we are going to cut out this on our fabric, because I know that is when it's going to make some sense. So let me get the fabric, then we'll start cutting.